Hello class 8, welcome to your civics class. So today I'm going to continue the same chapter, chapter number 1B, the Union Executive, from the organs of Indian government. So let's continue our class. Today's class will discuss about the powers of the president, right? So powers of the president under this heading we are going to discuss about the executive powers of the president and legislative power, judicial power, administrative executive power, then military power, and the last one is second last is emergency power, and the last one is discretionary power. So these are the powers of the president which we are going to discuss one by one. So let's talk about the executive power of the president. So executive, that means the constitution lays down that the executive power of the union shall be vested in the president. His executive powers are included as number one, administrative head. So the president is the administrative head of a state. Clear? So the administration of the country runs in his name. That means he is the first citizen of India, or first citizen of a country, first citizen of India. So all orders are issued in his name. All officials are his subordinates. That means lower to him. All other officials are lower in rank and lower to him. He is the head of the union administrations. So administrative head, that means he is the head of the union administration. He is the head of this of the state, of the country. So this is the administrative power of a president. Now next, appointments and dismisses the prime minister and the council of ministers. So that comes in executive power, that the president can appoint and can dismiss the prime minister and the council of ministers, entire council of ministers. So that's the appoints and dismisses of the prime minister and the council of ministers. It's written here, he appoints, that means the president appoints the prime minister on the advice, on his advice he appoints other ministers in the council of ministers. He administers the oath of office to them, and the prime minister and his ministers submit their resignation to him if required. Right? So it's written here, the prime minister is appointed by the president and the entire council of ministers are appointed by the president, but on the advice of prime minister. Right? So that's the appointment. That's regarding appointment. Now dismisses, that means resignation. Regarding that resignation, the prime minister and his council of ministers need to submit their resignation, or they can submit, or the prime minister and the ministers submit their resignation to him, that means to the president, if required. Right? So they need to, the prime minister or the council of ministers, they need to submit their resignation to the president. Clear? Okay, so that's the second executive power of the president. Now let's talk about the appointments and dismisses of high officials. So high officials means the president can appoint the high officials like attorney general or the judges of Supreme Court, Supreme Courts, High Court, and the state governors, ambassadors, and high commissioners. Right? So those are high officials. So the president can appoint those high officials, as well as the president can dismiss or appoints the chairman of, and can dismiss those high officials as well, right? Okay. He also appoints chairman and the members of the Union Public Service Commission, that is UPSC. In short form, we call it UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, Finance Commission, and the Election Commissioners of India. So not only that he also the president can also appoint the other high officials, like the chairman and the members of UPSC, as well as the Finance Commission and the members of the Election Commission. Clear? Okay, now next power is executive power, is power to administrate union territories. As we know, there are 8 union territories in India. So every union territory in India is under the president. So those 8 states, those 8 union territories, not states, those 8 union territories, which is included in India. So there are 8 union territories that is under the president, and it is administered by the president. He exercises this power through an administrator appointed by him. So directly he does not he does not administer that union territory, but he exercises this power, administrative power, on those 8 union territories through an official, through an administrator appointed by the president. Now next we have next power is, so the appointment and dismissal of the high officials that they lie in this executive power of the president, right? Now next we have legislative power. So legislative, we know legislative means law making. So legislative power, president, in previous chapter I told you about the 3 integral parts of the Union Parliament, Union Indian Parliament. So I told you there are 3 main parts: the president, the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha. So the president is an integral part, important part. The president can summon and prorogue the meeting, or the meeting of the parliament, or he can prorogue or summon the parliament. That means he can call for the meeting and can dismiss the meeting also, or as well, right? So he summons both houses of the parliament to session. He directs a joint session of both the houses to be held. He can also prorogue the parliament. So he can prorogue, means he can stop the proceeding of the meeting of the parliament, as well as he can call for the meeting, right? And he calls for the joint session of the both the houses in the parliament, right? So that's the first legislative power of the president. Now second, to dissolve the Lok Sabha. We know Lok Sabha that dissolve after every 5 years. So the president has the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha on the advice of the Prime Minister before the expiry of its full term. And before 5 years, Lok Sabha also can be dissolved. So in that case, the president has the power to dissolve the Lok Sabha, right? Okay, next is nomination of MPs. As I told you, the president nominates 12 members to Rajya Sabha and 2 members to Lok Sabha, right? And we know that the 12 MPs to Rajya Sabha from amongst outstanding contributors to literature, science, social service, or art, or sports, or your film industries, right? And the 2 members whom he nominates to Lok Sabha, that those 2 MPs must belong to Anglo-Indian community, right? So we know that the president nominates 12 members to Rajya Sabha and 2 members to Lok Sabha. So that's his legislative power. Now next is prior sanction before introducing certain bills. So before introduced certain bills, they require certain prior sanctions, approval, right? The president grants prior sanction, prior approval for the introduction of certain bills, such as a money bill, a bill for the creation of new states, or a bill for alteration in the territories of state, right? So in those cases, in those bills, what is required? Prior sanction, prior approval of or prior consent of the president. Clear? So that's the prior sanction before introducing certain bills. So that's the another legislative part of the president. Now let's talk about the assent to legislation. As I told you regarding money bill and ordinary bill, so finally the assent of president is required to make that bill an act, right? So president's assent, signature to a bill is necessary to become a law. He may refuse to give his assent, his signature, so or send it back for reconsideration. So if it is not a money bill, so in case of ordinary bill, he can reject the bill, right? Not in case of money bill. That should be ordinary bill. If this bill is again passed by the parliament with or without amendments, the president must give his assent to it. With or without amendment means without alteration or without changes, right? So if the bill is again passed, then the president needs to give his assent, signature, and after that, after his assent, after that signature, the bill becomes an act. Clear? Okay, now next is to issue ordinances. So the president can promulgate an ordinance. So ordinance is what? Ordinance is that order which is issued during emergency. So what type of emergencies? Under two conditions. Number one, when the parliament is not in session. Secondly, when the president is satisfied that immediate necessary to be taken or necessary legislative action to be taken or immediate action is required in a state or in country, right? So in those conditions, or we can say during emergencies, he issues an order, and that is known as ordinance. Clear? Okay. So, however, the ordinance has to be placed before the parliament within 6 weeks from its reassembly. This is point to be noted. However, the ordinance has to be placed before the parliament within, that means within 6 weeks from its reassembly. That means it needs that ordinance needs to be approved by the member of parliament, right? And the expiry term of that ordinance is 6 weeks. So within 6 weeks, that ordinance which is issued by the president needs to be passed or approved by the member of parliament, right? Okay, now these were the legislative powers we discussed just now. Now let's move to the judicial power. Okay, before moving to this judicial power, let's discuss about the military power. So, military power of the president, that means the president is the supreme commander of the armed forces. So, when we say armed forces, that means that includes three forces. So, that three forces are army, right? And second one is navy, and the third one is air force. So the president is the supreme commander of these three forces. Clear? Okay. Now, the president is the supreme commander of the armed forces of India. In this capacity, he appoints the chief of the staff of the army, the navy, and the air force, and other defense services. As the supreme commander of the armed force, he also has the power to declare war or to conclude peace with any country. So that's the power, that's the military power of the president. So in this capacity, he has the power to declare war or to conclude peace with any country, right? Okay. So that we have discussed this one, military power just now. Now let's talk about the judicial power. So judicial power means related to uh, different courts, right? High courts, Supreme Court, or other courts. Judicial powers. He has the right, or he has the power, not right, he has the power to modify the punishment. So modify the punishment means the president can grant pardon, reprieval, or remission of punishment passed by any court in three cases. Number one, so he can excuse, the president can excuse or grant pardon in three cases. Number one, in case of death sentence, or in case of where the punishment is given by a court martial. So court martial is that punishment which is given to the guilty armed the member of armed forces, the one who is guilty and a member of armed forces, right? So that's the court martial. So in short, we can say court martial, that means it's a military court, right? In that case, or where the punishment is for an offense against the union law. It may be noted that to modify punishment is a matter of grace or mercy on convict's appeal to the president. It is not a right of the convicted person. So it's not the right of the convicted person, but it may be noted that to modify punishment is a matter of grace or mercy on convict's appeal to the president. Clear? So otherwise what happens is, like whatever decision is given by the Supreme Court of India, that has to be accepted, right? So the only way to or there is only one way where the person can appeal to the like beyond Supreme Court. There is no any other court. So the Supreme Court is the apex court, right? So there is no court to appeal. So the person can move to the president and he or she can file petition, right? So in that case, so in that condition, the president can modify the punishment given to that person, right? Given to that guilty one. So it is to be noted that to modify punishment is a matter of what? It's a matter of grace or mercy on convict's appeal to the president, right? So it's not the it's not a right of the convicted person. So it is not a right of that guilty one or guilty person or convicted person to appeal to the president after going against the decision of the Supreme Court. Clear? Okay. So that's the judicial powers of the president. Clear, children? Okay. So children, I'll take your leave now. This much for today. In next video we'll be continuing this chapter, and we'll complete this chapter in next video, right? So this much for today. Thank you.